A move that certainly surprised me this past week was the fact that Jordan Howard got traded to the Eagles. Well, not really the fact that he got traded to the Eagles, I think that part makes a ton of sense, but the fact that they only got a 6th round pick for him. I mean, he's a guy who has 3,370 yards in his first 3 seasons, and he also has 24 touchdowns as well. So the fact that the Eagles were able to get him for so cheap, in my opinion, is just a steal from them, and I can definitely see him being very effective in their system. But first, let's talk about what their system is. And a lot of what they do is have interesting blocking angles to try to give themselves a better chance to run the ball forward. And I'll show you what I mean with this play. The first thing you're going to want to notice is that the center and left tackle are each going to have one-on-one blocks on that right side of the screen. And what's interesting about this play is look at the Eagle who's in charge of covering that cowboy. Typically, you'd expect the left guard to simply just run up and block him, as that would be a traditional type of blocking concept. However, the Eagles are actually going to have their right guard move all the way over there and block him instead. Typically, this would now mean that a Cowboy's interior lineman is now getting unblocked. However, what the Eagles are going to do for that is send their left guard over to block him. From there, Philadelphia can simply just send a tight end out to block the edge rusher, and they can send a right tackle out to block the other linebacker. The reason for doing something like this and creating non-traditional angles for your guys to make blocks is typically because those angles do make it easier to make a block. However, of course, the downside being now you have to get over, and there's a much bigger chance of you completely missing the block altogether. So like as of right now, the left guard who had to pull over to the left side of the screen now is sort of in an interesting blocking situation where he is blocking that cowboy. However, the cowboy was able to get in position to get somewhere close to the halfback. And because there's another receiver and defensive back right over there, this now means that basically where the halfback has to run is kind of like that, where he has to zigzag across those two cowboys. It's not an easy play to make, however, if you're quick, it can still be done, and that's exactly what happened right there. That's kind of maybe one of the drawbacks with the Eagles signing Jordan Howard, is it does seem that their offense relies a lot on quickness more than anything. They like to have a lot of non-traditional running angles, and they like to run a lot of RPOs. It definitely isn't the same as the Bears' offense, however, it's not completely different either. They definitely have their similarities, which maybe makes the decision a little bit head-scratching. But here, I'll show you more what I mean with this next play. What the Eagles are going to do in this one is have a tight end and receiver have blocks right there, and they're also going to pull their center over to block the nearest linebacker on the bottom half of the screen, and then they're simply just going to send their halfback over to the bottom half of the screen as well. So typically this now means it becomes a foot race. It's that linebacker versus that halfback, and if the halfback is able to outrun the linebacker, he could get free and pick up a ton of yards. So this is the play relying on speed, which seems like it's not Jordan Howard's forte. But if you take a look here, the Rams linebacker actually does a very good job of keeping pace with Smallwood, who is a very quick halfback, so really no matter how fast you are on this play, it probably was still going to work out well for the Rams, at least up until this point. But of course, then there's that X factor of if you can break a tackle or just run the guy over, you can pick up a ton more yards. Smallwood is going to try to run into that Rams linebacker, and it is not going to end well for him. He picks up barely any yards and takes a big hit while doing it. So that's kind of where Jordan Howard could benefit you. I mean, Jordan Howard obviously is still quick. I'm not going to say that he's a slow guy. He's definitely far from just a north-south type halfback. However, he definitely thrives in being able to break tackles. So him running these types of plays maybe doesn't seem like on paper would make a ton of sense, but it definitely can factor in and can allow you to pick up more yards with a guy like Jordan Howard who can break tackles and can just fall forward. Another interesting way the Eagles help their halfbacks create more space is by plays like this. If you take a look at the top half of the screen, they're going to have 3 receivers in a bunch formation at the top half of the screen, and because the Rams are playing man coverage on this play, this actually means that 3 of them are going to have to move up to the top half of the screen. From there, what Philadelphia is going to do is have their center and right guard have one-on-one matchups right there. They're also going to have their tight end move up to have a one-on-one matchup against a linebacker, and then pull their right guard over to the left side of the screen and have a one-on-one matchup with an interior lineman. Once again, these are non-traditional angles, however, it should create easier blocks, and it kind of creates a wedge for the halfback to then run straight up the middle. And because the Rams on the top half of the screen were expecting there to be some sort of a wide receiver screen in that direction, this now made it very easy for the Eagles to pick up a ton of yards. That's the kind of play that kind of works no matter which running back you have. However, it does go to show that the Eagles and Doug Peterson are definitely willing to mix things up, get creative, and help the running backs have an easier time to gain some yards. This play is another example of that, as once again, you're going to have a lot of wedge type blocks where a lot of guys are moving in different directions. What you're going to see is they're going to double team the interior lineman right there, and then the Eagles are going to have their right tackle move out to block a linebacker, and they're going to have their left guard pull over to the left side of the screen and block that interior lineman right there. So there's a lot of chaos going on, but the halfback is basically going to run straight through all of it, and again, with the non-traditional blocks, this should make things a lot easier for him to get through. However, one thing worth noting is because there was a little bit more space, this now means that a Charger was able to read what's going on, and now sees that it is going to be a run, and is able to break to the right side of the screen, and get around the left guard who was pulling in that direction. Because he wasn't able to get to the block quick enough, this now means he's able to easily create contact with the halfback. However, take a look at what this play is. This actually isn't a play from 2018, this is the play from 2017, and the reason I'm showing this play is because the halfback is LeGarrette Blount on this play. Blount's able to pick up a ton more yards after the contact, and even though the play didn't really work out the way the Eagles had initially intended, it still ended up being a pretty decent gain for them. him. That's kind of the role I see Jordan Howard taking on next season, is kind of that LeGarrette Blount role that they just didn't have a guy who could take on last season. And Jordan Howard definitely can do that. But now, enough talking about what Jordan Howard can do and how he could fit in this system. Let's talk about what Jordan Howard did do and how he has fit in other systems. Like on this play, for example, what Chicago is going to do is have a double team on a Lions interior lineman right over there, and then they're going to send their right guard up to block a linebacker, and then they're going to have all one-on-one matchups on that right side of the screen. However, one thing worth noting is that the Lion linebacker who was supposed to get blocked after that right guard got off his double team is actually going to do a great job of reading the play quickly and breaking into the gap of where Jordan Howard was initially going to run into. However, there was one benefit, and it's that the Lions did have to potentially be prepared for a potential Mitchell Trubisky run. That's why there's such a big gap in between that interior lineman and that edge rusher, is because the edge rusher has to be the contained man on this play. Howard wasn't supposed to do this, but he is going to break into that hole that developed on that side of the screen, and he even picks up some more yards after the contact. This wasn't a game-changing play by any means, and it definitely won't be making any highlight reels anytime soon, but I do think it goes to show how Howard can realize what's going on in the middle of a play, and be able to make a move to try to gain the most yards possible. Anyone can run through an open hole. The best halfbacks are the guys who can make something happen even when the play doesn't develop the way that the offensive coordinator originally wanted it to develop. This next play is another interesting one, and again, a couple of these plays you are going to see that one of the X factors that wouldn't be in Philadelphia that was in Chicago was the fact that they love to run the ball with Mitchell Trubisky. But I do think these plays go to show how talented of a player Howard is, which is why I'm including them. And if you take a look, basically what's going to happen is there is going to be a threat of Trubisky running to that left side of the screen, and so the hope is that a linebacker will kind of creep over to that side of the screen. Then Chicago will have their center and left guard double team an interior lineman, and also have their right tackle have a one-on-one block with the edge rusher on the right side of the screen. And if you take a look, there is going to be a wide open hole on that right side of the screen. And so as I mentioned before, any guy can run through a wide open hole. It takes a special running back to then be able to get through that hole and be able to make more happen afterwards. And that's exactly what Howard's going to do. I mean, even though this hole is wide open, if he doesn't get through there very quickly, it could close up very quickly, or at least maybe another guy can run into the play and make a tackle for only 5 or 6 yards. But he gets through very quickly and even runs over a bill before finally getting brought down. Also, just as a personal preference, I love when a guy is willing to run over another guy even after passing the first down marker. I think that's just great. You always love guys who are willing to fight for every yard possible, and while I get that football is a physical sport, you do have to protect yourself. Just as a fan's perspective, and if I was a coach, that would be the kind of things I look for in a player. This next play is another very interesting play call by the Bears. Basically what they're going to do is have all one-on-one matchups right in that middle of the field, and run Howard just straight up the middle. I said it's an interesting play call, but really what makes it interesting is the fact that it's about as basic of a play call as you can possibly imagine. If we take a look right now, there actually is contact with Howard at this point. Not a ton of contact, but there is a Bill who's going to get his arm on Jordan Howard's leg, and this could mean very bad news. And while that will end up being what brings Jordan Howard down, he is able to fall forward and pick up basically another 5 yards after contact. That's kind of one of the things I really like about Jordan Howard, is the fact that he just falls forward. You really want that in a halfback. It's almost Marshawn Lynch-like, and while it's obviously not quite on that level, it is still very good. While I can talk all day about what Jordan Howard does well, there was one thing I noticed that I kind of don't love about Jordan Howard, and it's as follows. Basically, the two biggest blocks on this play are the two Bears right on the right side of the screen, the right guard and right tackle, as they have to block an interior lineman and a linebacker. Then on the other side of the screen, the Bears left guard and left tackle each have one-on-one matchups, and the center has a zone blocking concept, although he's mostly focused on that left side of the screen. Meaning basically what they're going to do is send their halfback up there, and as long as their right guard and right tackle make their blocks, it could be a very good thing for the Bears. Now, if you notice here, there is going to be a hole for the Bears. I mean, granted, it's not the biggest hole in the world. I mean, it's a pretty sizable hole, but the problem with it, of course, is that both the Bears offensive linemen who are making their blocks could easily lose their blocks at any second and allow Bill to get through. But it still seems like a pretty good situation, especially if Howard gets as far to the left as possible while running through, and he could easily pick up a first down if he gets all the way through, and worst case scenario, pick up 3 or 4 yards. But instead, what he's going to notice is that no Bill was really doing a great job of containment on that left side of the screen. So this is going to kind of give him an idea that maybe he could try to break to the outside and pick up a ton of yards. However, the problem with that is there is going to be a linebacker who's running in that direction, so even though there's really no defensive end using containment in that play, there still is a linebacker who could basically serve that purpose. Also worth noting that a Bears left guard isn't going to do a great job of winning his one-on-one matchup on his play, and this now means that a Bill could very easily get to that left side of the screen. Now, the same thing could have easily happened if Howard just ran up the middle. However, the difference between that is that they would have at least gained yards on that play. They could have gained 3 or 4 yards, and really there's just as good a chance of them getting a ton of yards if Jordan Howard ran straight up the middle or if he broke to the outside. One of the things I don't love about Jordan Howard is he does have a bit of a tendency to break to the outside when he doesn't have to. It's kind of like the quarterback who, when down 14 in the first quarter, all of a sudden tries to throw a touchdown on every pass, when really that's not what you have to do. You don't have to go for the long ball every time, and you don't have to break to the outside every time if you're a halfback. You can just run it up the middle and pick up the yards that you're going to get. One of the things I do like about Jordan Howard is he does have great acceleration. He does get up to his top speed very quickly, and I think that could be very effective in the Eagles offense, and really it was very effective in the Bears offense. Like, if we take a look at this play, for example, the Bears center, right guard, and right tackle are each going to have one-on-one matchups against Bills right there, and they're also going to pull the left guard over to the right side of the screen to have a one-on-one matchup with that Bill right over there. This now means that Howard can simply break in that direction in between the Bills' interior lineman and Bills' linebacker, and he could be free if he can get there quickly. And also, of course, if the offensive line makes their blocks. Howard is able to run past everyone, get through that hole, and now he's in great position to try to take up a ton of yards. But of course, when you're in this situation, you don't want to just pick up a ton of yards. You're thinking, why not touchdown? I mean, you're already at the 10-yard line. Why not go the rest of the way? Of course, the problem is that there is going to be a Bill in that area. So basically, Howard has to try to figure out a way to get around that Bill. Or does he? He's actually going to run straight into the Bill, knock him over, and then get into the end zone for a touchdown. I've definitely shown some plays earlier, and I won't make a ton of highlight reels. However, I think it's fair to say that play should make every highlight reel about Jordan Howard because it was just a tremendous play. That's the positive of Jordan Howard. He accelerates quickly, and he's very good at open space and very good at just breaking tackles. He's a big guy, hard to bring down. That's really all you can ask for out of a halfback. However, there is one thing that I would say is a drawback with him, and it'll be shown well with this play. What the Bears are going to do here is have their left tackle and tight end each have 1-1 matchups on those two Cardinals right there, with basically the whole goal to try to block the Cardinals to the right side of the screen. And then they're going to put a left guard and center over to the left side of the screen, and basically each one of them will block the two linebackers closest to that side of the screen. They also have a receiver in motion to that left side of the screen, and he'll be blocking that other defensive back who's following him since it is man coverage, which basically means that there's going to be one Cardinal who's going to be unblocked on this play, and it becomes a foot race with Jordan Howard and that Cardinal. So now there's the threat of that Cardinal being able to outrun him, so Howard pretty much has no choice but to run to the left side of the screen as fast as he can, try to turn the corner and pick up some yards. It's not really going to work out. They only pick up about a yard or two, because the fact of the matter is, while Jordan Howard does get it to his top speed pretty quickly, he's just not as fast as some of these other halfbacks. Really, that is a reason why he ended up being the 150th overall pick, because he doesn't have the best speed. However, he can accelerate quickly, and he's clearly a big back, and so do I think that's going to factor against him? Honestly, no. I really don't. I mean, one of the problems of making these types of preview videos and seeing how someone will fit in a certain system is the fact that the best coaches fit their system around their players, not the other way around. While on paper it might not be a perfect fit for him going to the Eagles, I think it makes a ton of sense for him going to the Eagles, considering the fact that Doug Peterson is pretty much an offensive genius and can definitely figure out ways to implement Jordan Howard and get him to be effective in his system. I mean, I'm very pro Doug Peterson, and for a very valid reason, as he's clearly one of the best head coaches in the game. He's won a Super Bowl, and he's one of the more creative head coaches in the game. I mean, Peterson is a guy who outsmarted Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure he's a guy who can figure out how to use Jordan Howard in his system. I love the move for the Eagles. Worst case scenario, you lose a late round pick, which is pretty much just a lottery pick anyways. I don't really understand it for the Bears. It seems like if you couldn't get more than that, I'd probably rather just keep him, because he can be somewhat effective in your system, even if it's not as effective as he can be in other systems. But that's just my opinion. One factor I definitely could see is the fact that because he is such a physical running back, maybe teams should just worried he could potentially get injured or something, but the fact of the matter is he's only getting $2 million this year, so I definitely think it's a perfect no-risk play for the Eagles, and I fully expect him to at least be somewhat valuable for them next season.